Green all the way in 6A.
Alright, so if you recall, I took one of the boxes, we opened it up, and we cut the flaps off, and the flaps are what we used to go around each one of our legs. Well, now we have the middle bit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half, and we're going to use this as the lip that's going to go around the entire table. And that will just kind of give it a nice finish lip so that, again, we're strengthening our legs as well, because remember, we're going to have to next tape all of these pieces together, get them nice and strong, and then we're going to cover the entire thing with our Mod Podge, decoupage, and then we can paint it to look however we want it to look. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this in half, because cut it in half lengthwise, because as you can see, we don't have enough for it to go around. And also, I don't want the lip to be this wide. So by cutting it in half, we're actually going to be perfect. All right, so now we've got our pieces that I've cut the width. I've cut it in half width-wise. And just so you know, the table that I'm making here is going to measure approximately 18.5 by 20.5, and that's the size you get out of a box that would, when complete, measure 12 by 10 by 8. So just so you get kind of an idea of what you're looking for, what kind of size box you're going to need. All right, so now what we do is we want to make sure that this fits completely around the perimeter of our entire surface. And just can see we've got all of our corners cut out. We have all of our layers lined up. We have our top box where we didn't cut the corners out. And what I'm going to do now is tape it all together so that it's nice and snug. I want to make sure that you really, really secure all these layers. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking the top, going around nice and tight, pressing as I do so. We want to get this as compact as possible. So now we have all of our layers taped together, like so, nice and secure. And remember, it doesn't look pretty yet because we're going to be covering it with other things. I'll show you how to cover like all these seams and things like that so that we don't have these gaping holes. But this is our base. And now what we need to do is take those pieces that we cut lengthwise, and you'll notice it's actually a perfect fit. And then the other one is going to come around like this, and all we need to do is so that it all matches up nice and even. And then what we're going to do is tape the top edge here. We're going to be taping the top edge here at this seam so that it's all attached. And all right, we have attached the edges all the way around with our tape. And this is what it should look like. We have our inside here, our edge going all the way around with our tape. Now, we take each one of our legs, and if we have lined it all up carefully, it should all fit in nice and beautifully snug, like so. Make sure it goes all the way down to the floor. We have, and sometimes you're going to have to finagle it a little bit. This is what we have. This is our table. Now, here's the test. Is it going to stay together? Oh boy, careful, careful. Look, we have our table. Now don't worry, we still have a lot of work to do. But it looks like it's pretty stable, and we want to make sure that our legs are spread out properly and lying flat on the ground. And you know, this table is going to support exactly what I want it to. All right, so a few things. You're going to notice that right now with things just taped, you're really going to want to use strong tape. This tape may not be ideal because I found that my edges were starting to come apart. So you might want to use duct tape on the parts that are having a difficult time staying together. That's one note. The other thing is, now that I've put my legs in here, I realized that I want to have a thicker edge right here. Remember, this is going to be the bottom edge, but I would like it to be a little more sturdy. So what I've done is I've taken some cardboard pieces and I've cut them to size so that we will attach them like so, and then we will have just this little extra layer of strength to go all the way around like this. And it's going to just make it a little bit more thick and secure. So I've cut these 4 pieces to go like this, and then our legs will go in like so. Now, the fun part. We get to cover this whole thing with paper, our scrap paper, and Mod Podge. And I'll show you how to do that. My edges, I've got them thicker and really nice. I really like this width. And what we're going to do now is we're going to pull the legs out because we want to put a layer of Mod Podge on all of this, get it all together so we don't have to worry about things falling apart from our tape. And then once we do that, we can put the legs in after and make sure that everything is all lined up before we put our second layer on, which will make it really, really strong. So what I've done is I've just taken my leg and remember, that's why we have our second layer, that comes out as well. So all that should be left in terms of the legs are just our outer layer. These inner layers can all come out. Like so. Now we're going to start Mod Podging. And this is what we do. I've taken my paper, my scrap paper, and it actually is really nice to have a raw edge. So just tear it in half. We're going to use quarters. Okay. We've got our sheets right here that we're going to use. Now I've got my handy dandy little brush and I've got my gorgeous Mod Podge. This stuff, this is how I'm furnishing my whole apartment. Everything is getting coated with this. It's a really nice finish and it's very strong. It's basically like using glue. You have to be very, very precise when you're using the Mod Podge on this project because as you can see, everything is very angular. And we want to make sure that when we put the paper on it, we have to keep these angles. And if you need a smaller piece, just keep ripping it in half. And I'll show you why you might need to do that. We take a little bit of our glue, put a little bit on our paper. I always try to thin it out by putting another piece on top, nice and evenly coated, okay? Now, we're gonna take our paper and glue it all together like this. And smooth out all our edges. And see how we want to keep this 90-degree angle here? That's going to be very important because we just want to, this is all the work that we did, and it'll make it very, very strong. And then I take my other piece here, put that in this corner, and make that all nice and secure. And we are going to cover the entire table exactly like this. And remember, we also have to do our edges, and this is how you do edges. Take your piece. This is our technique for Mod Podge. I always take a second sheet and go like this to thin it out a bit. Makes it go a lot, you know, you can get a lot more mileage with it. And this is how we do our edges. We just go like so. And see, now I have a nice thick edge. That's exactly how I want it to be. The one thing you have to not do not put anything over this edge. Because remember, when we're done, we have to take our insides and put them back in, and they need to fit perfectly. So stay away from this edge, but cover everything else. And make sure you get a nice edge. Make sure you get a nice 90-degree coating over everything. I will do this whole top, let it dry, and then we need to flip it over and do the other side. And that is where one corner, for time reasons I can't do the whole thing, but I did one corner right here just so you can see how nicely you kind of take your little pieces of paper and cut them and Mod Podge them and really put everything together. We won't have any more seams. It's all going to go together really nicely. And as the Mod Podge hardens, all of this is nice and stiff and it's all together. Imagine that our whole just to test and make sure that everything is still on track, put your leg, remember your cardboard, your other layer of cardboard, put that in here, and look, it slides right in, and we're not going to be able to Mod Podge all of this to our unit until we've got everything together, because we want to make sure that we can put it all right side up and even it out before we attach it with the Mod Podge. Hopefully that's understandable. I'm going to flip this over, do the other side of this corner just so you get an idea of what the whole thing should look like. Now you can see the other side. So we've put our paper over all of our edges. Everything is really nice and smooth. And obviously the smoother you can get it, the better. This is not our only layer. This is only our first layer. So you can actually do as many layers as you want. But because this is going to be I want it to be strong enough to support things, I want to probably put 2 layers on it before I do my actual decorative layer. One thing I should have told you, when you have a seam like this that you want to cover, you're going to want to make sure that you do that with an extra thick piece of paper. This would actually work. This is just a regular piece of paper that I folded in half. You're going to want to make sure that you put that down like that because you don't want this hole to show. So just be aware that you might have to do special things like that. But other than that, it's very simple. You just put your layer of paper on with the Mod Podge and you're good to go.
Green all the way in 6A.